Did you know we have completely ad-free early access to all of our episodes? Well, we do. Not only that, but we have dozens of bonus episodes waiting for you. Head on over to patreon.com/ghosttownpod, and you can check it out for 7 days absolutely free. That's patreon.com/ghosttownpod. A Shallow Grave. I'm Jason Horton.
I'm Rebecca Lieb.
And this is Ghost Town.
In the historic Trinity Churchyard in Lower Manhattan, just off Wall Street, is a limestone grave. Most don't make this grave their first priority when they go to the cemetery, as American icons like Alexander Hamilton also call this cemetery their eternal homes. But to a curious few, the small, simple stone marked Charlotte Temple is the real draw. Why? Because she never existed. Today on Ghost Town, the mysterious Charlotte Temple. 2 centuries ago, most American readers would have known the name Charlotte Temple. Temple was the title character in a novel by Susanna Rosen called Charlotte, A Tale of Truth. It was published under the name Charlotte Temple in some places around 1791. The plot of this novel goes something like this. Charlotte Temple is this naive, 16-year-old British girl who gets seduced by a man named Lord Montraville. Montraville takes Charlotte to America and then abandons her when he goes off to marry another woman because he hadn't married Charlotte. After this marriage, Montraville fights in the Revolutionary War. And so, after being abandoned, poor Charlotte dies penniless in a wintry New York City after giving birth to an illegitimate child. And the book ends with her father arriving too late to save her from this death. It sounds like, I've never read it, a bit of a bummer. Well, it was, but the book was also hugely popular. In fact, it was the best-selling novel in America for half a century, a moody New York tragedy. Says fandom scholar and Atlas Obscura community editor Allegra Rosenberg about the novel, quote, "It's the exact same kind of thing that's just playing on people's heartstrings. It was so popular. I mean, it was the best-selling novel for decades, right up until the release of Uncle Tom's Cabin. So that's a long time." Professor Ivy Linton Stable, who teaches the book to her literature students at Iona University, says that the melodramatic tale appealed to all different kinds of Americans and was essentially an articulation of the story of America itself. A young, vulnerable woman is whisked away to New York by a powerful Englishman, has difficulties there, the nobleman abandoned her, fights in the Revolutionary War, and she must go it alone, giving birth to the next generation that, despite its history, would thrive on the backs of the prior generation's hardships. Fuck the British, pretty much. Quote, "The book resonated with people on the explicit character level, but also the implicit big picture idea about America as a new country," Stable says. In Charlotte, Americans saw not only their own personal heartbreaks and miseries, but the United States' struggle for independence and recognition in the post-revolutionary era. You also have to take into account that this is the 18th century, the true rise of the novel as an art form, especially in America. Novels had the reputation of being kind of indulgent and scandalous, not unlike something you might want, not unlike maybe someone watching reality TV today. So novels were this big thing in England, but definitely in the US, mostly in the US. According to Allegra Rosenberg, throughout the 18th century, quote, "Throughout the 18th century, there were these books that were just total smash hits. We have Samuel Richardson's Pamela, Henry Fielding's Tom Jones. These are all books about the life story of one main character and all their trials and tribulations, which is definitely the formula that Charlotte Temple fits in." At the time of the book's release in America, understandably, the novel was viewed with suspicion by Enlightenment-era literary critics. After all, it was at the time, like I kind of said, trashy, pulpy, an emotional read. Charlotte is young and naive, willful and immoral, going her own way by following her heart. Essentially, and very intrinsically, American as well. Readers were on the side of Charlotte as she left her home, fell in love, and had a child out of wedlock. Instead of seeing her death as fitting punishment for immorality, readers pitied her, wept for her, and made her into somewhat of a folk hero. Soon, Charlotte Temple quickly became a celebrity in her own right, the subject of discourse, plays, and a touring exhibition of wax figures. Amongst all the popularity and discourse, Susanna Rosen always claimed that Charlotte was a true story based on the life of Charlotte Stanley, the granddaughter of the Earl of Derby and or Colonel John Montresor, Rosen's cousin. Historical evidence does not support this assertion at all. Trinity's burial records for the time were very conveniently destroyed by a fire, and there's also no record of Charlotte's birth in England, any kind of Charlotte Temple around that time. The details of Montresor's life also don't match up with Rowson's story either, but lots of people understandably thought she was real. And soon, out of nowhere, a gravestone appeared in the middle of Trinity Churchyard. Charlotte Temple's grave. More after this break. Finding out that Charlotte Temple, the protagonist of the 18th century smash hit Charlotte, A Tale of Truth, had a gravesite that you could actually visit was pretty exciting news to people at the time. Thousands made pilgrimages to Charlotte's gravestone, leaving flowers, cards, and even their tears at the shrine of the girl who died for love. Like I've said before, many of the visitors really thought she was a real person, and the churchyard caretakers fed into this idea that she was in fact real and telling people that they actually saw her body. At a certain point, it was the most decorated, flower-adorned grave in the cemetery, so it became extremely easy for tourists to find. The press were always reporting on research into Charlotte Temple. Again, the book was a smash hit. Her grave, her origin, and also fed into this kind of frenzied fandom stoked by the author Susanna Rowson and the churchyard staff. At the time, the grave had a kind of rectangular depression that many assumed had once been filled by a plaque with more details about Temple. This apparent absence was cause for great speculation and added, of course, to the mystique of the grave. Where did the plaque go? Did someone steal it? And what was on it? But some people knew better. In an 1888 interview, William Kelby, a librarian of the New York Historical Society, told a reporter that decades earlier, quote, people were not so quick to discern between facts and fiction as they are now in this novel writing and novel reading age, and thus were likely to believe that there was really a Charlotte Temple, and she really was buried beneath the slab of Trinity. Again, something that mirrors perhaps the information age now, where we kind of feed into things that we deem real, or maybe we get little breadcrumbs that we use for our own confirmation bias. So the big mystery at this point is, where did the fake grave of Charlotte Temple come from? According to an Atlas Obscura piece about the grave, likely the grave appeared around the 1840s. Yes, more than 50 years after the book was published. It was at this time that the church went through a major rebuild and dealt with some structural issues. The stonecutter who laid the stone probably had extra, put it down, and cut Charlotte's name into it. At least this is a story that is still told by churchyard tour guides today, Trinity archivist Catherine Hurwitz explained to Atlas Obscura. The timeline seems to fit, as there are no references to the grave existing before the 1850s. Also, the tombstone is made of the same New Jersey brownstone as the building, and so it was probably laid around the same time, maybe underneath one of the many temporary work tents that occupied the churchyard during all of this renovation and reconstruction. Quote, there's nobody down there, Hurwitz clarified. If there was at some point, they weren't Charlotte because Charlotte was not a real person. But just in case, after over a century of curiosity, in 2008, the Trinity Archives team received the go-ahead to investigate the grave. This involved lifting the slab to check if there was a burial vault underneath it. There wasn't. And then seeing if any remains could be detected. None were found. So now that we know what may have happened, the question is, why? Why would someone put a fake grave in a real graveyard? Professor Ivy Linton Stable points out that the grave may have been kind of a get-rich-quick scheme. Whoever created it might have been, quote, someone who had kind of a savvy business sense about them, she said. It was the era when tourism was beginning. Regular middle-class people are starting to tour around, and guidebooks to places like New York are being published. At the time, tourism was going really well, and regular people, again, could be more mobile. They could go places. They could find things based on all these pieces of literature that were being published. Maybe Charlotte Temple's grave might have been on the must-see list, seeing as it came from the best-selling book. As Atlas Obscura noted, the original kind of tourist trap. But one other theory, and maybe the less plausible one, but a little more romantic, I would say, is that someone at the cemetery was an admirer of the Charlotte Temple book, maybe even a fan, big fan, and decided to fashion an impromptu memorial to their favorite literary character, or if they thought it was a real person. In this case, maybe the grave is not an act of commerce, but total, pure fandom. It could be a little bit of both. Whatever the inspiration for the grave, the phenomenon to me is fascinating. The idea of myth, memory, and how something so popular could produce a fake grave and then vanish back into history. Again, I would have never known about I don't know this book, I don't know this character. It was a bestseller for 50 years. You know, as someone who has taken a lot of history classes and retained a fair amount, I was very surprised that I had no knowledge of this whatsoever. It also makes me look at gravestones differently too now, where it's like, okay, is this a real grave, or is this some kind of celebrity hoax?